All right, everyone, welcome to our talk with Dr. Nimi Wariboko. He is a professor of social ethics from Boston University. Real quick, just some his educational background. He got his BS at the University of Port Harcourt. That's actually located in Nigeria in economics. He also got his MBA from Columbia University in finance and accounting. And he got his PhD at Princeton Theological Seminary in ethics. And he's currently teaching at Boston University. But his research areas, there's like 5 main pillars that he's interested in. The first one is economic ethics. The second is Christian social ethics. The third is African social traditions. The fourth is Pentecostal studies. And the fifth is philosophical theology. So you can see that his research interests are very diverse and very varied. I really liked reading his most recent article titled Nigeria is Less Communalistic Than America, and it was published earlier this year in Punch, which I believe, my understanding is that and they also took themselves as the most widely read newspaper in Nigeria. On a personal note, I met Dr. Nimi Wariboko at the Society of Pentecostal Studies annual conference in Atlanta, Georgia, earlier this year. The one thing that really stuck out to me was he was so friendly, and we struck a conversation immediately in the bus, on the shuttle ride to our respective hotels, all the conference participants. And he was just so generous with his expertise and time. And I'm so glad that you're joining us here at Vanguard University to analyze the Nollywood film, a Nigerian film, Your Excellency, that was released in 2019, and to also talk more broadly on Nigerian culture, politics, and its intersection with American culture, American politics, and social media with its very frequent reference to Instagram and Hollywood celebrities politicians, including Trump, Obama, Kardashians, Jenner, Jay-Z, Beyonce, galore. So if everyone can welcome Dr. Nimi Wariboko.
Yes, thank you, meeting all of you. I'm glad to be with you, and I cherish this opportunity given to me by Professor Kang to share my expertise with the class. So I'm going to share my screen so you have something. I don't know if all of you can see my screen, so that when I'm talking, you can. Let me see where. Okay, so yeah, there are about 5 categories I want to just give you a general idea about the film. To think about the film slightly in a different way. So what you saw, the film started with the candidate who is going to contest Ajadi trying to imitate Trump facial move. He had Trump's photograph in his living room or so. And what does that tell you? That is actually real in the sense that it conveys something about Nigeria. Donald Trump's victory at the polls in 2016 captures the imagination of Nigerians because no one expected him to win, and he won. So it captures the imagination that there's something about him, and his victory was interpreted as a miracle, something divine that happened. So it captures that imagination, just like in the United States, some people think that given the circumstances that was emerged, no one gave him a chance. The press, everybody thought Hillary was going to win, and he won. So that made Nigerians to take a second look at him, that he might actually be on a purpose for God. And Nigeria is a very religious country. And therefore, its success also fits into the narrative Nigerians have about themselves. Nigerians is also a society where people believe that anything can happen. There is almost a magical orientation to reality in the country, that anything, the unexpected can happen. Actually, Nigerians want you to expect the unexpected to happen at any point in time. So if we have a country that have that kind of mentality, then you see the Trump story as if confirming their own story. They believe that they can beat all odds. And they saw Trump's emergence in 2016, winning the November election in 2016, made them believe that, yeah, this is what we believe about ourselves. So something about him spoke to them. And that is what that film also captures, not just the candidate, right? But it's also candidates. And also we saw the candidate Ajadi trying to imitate Trump. And that is also very, in a sense, Nigerian, that most leaders and elites in post-colonial Nigeria are imitative of white people. And that's why sometimes this film rubs off Nigerian scholars and elites in a wrong way, because it kind of brings out that side that here you have a guy trying to contest, and he's trying to imitate Trump, a white person. And because Nigeria was a colonial country, it was colonized by the British also, so there's this remnant of the aspect of colonial mentality where people like their former oppressors, where they like the people that oppress them. So that tension is there. For many of them, white culture is the tape with which they measure their worth in life. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it's true for every Nigerian, but it's true for certain segments of the elite. And we saw that man acting out. So one, that film was just showing that indeed that is the reality of some Nigerians, right? But then, so that is the place of Trump and American politics, whatever you saw them doing, that there's some truth to that in the country, of that inclination to things American, things European, things white, unfortunately. It's not widespread for everybody, but you can't say the film was lying about some people in Nigeria believe that we could have a rich man wanting to be a president actually behaving that way that he did, and the film opened with that stuff. But then, if you think about it a second time, you get a different view that the movie is about the United States, not about Nigeria. In a sense, it could be a satire, right? They're using this and that. So now let us take a parallel shift. Means let us look at the same story from a different angle. It might be a parody of American democracy and society. It vividly portrays what we might call the American incredible. So if you look at it that way, they're actually telling an American story, the emergence of somebody or something unbelievable happening. So if you're a Nigerian or American, say, oh, these are black people trying to imitate white people, but they're actually using black bodies and black culture to tell a story about America, right? So it's what I would call the American incredible. That is the sheer capacity of the United States of America to do things that defy logic or common decency, or execute acts that portray it to be at odds with its ideals, to operate below the lofty pedestal that other nations have placed it. The American incredible, for me, is simply America's capacity to surprise the world in bad ways, or to shame or disappoint those foreigners who elevated it to the rank of God, right? So in a sense, the movie could be saying, wait a minute, we Nigerians, we black, did not expect somebody like Trump to win. And how did the American masses choose a person like that is openly anti-black in their stuff, right? So that sentiment is there. Some part of the society may see him as God sent on a religious basis, but others may see him, how could somebody like that emerge from America openly against other nations? That how could somebody who has no experience emerge? So what does that say about this America that we uphold in high standard? In the same way, when they hear stories about gun violence, right? They say, well, America is supposed to be a secure country, and why are we hearing gun violence? So it goes against their deal, or the pedestal they put America as being a very safe place, right? So you could read the movie in the same way, like showing America to America, right? So this is the way people see you, right? So you don't always live up to the ideals. So there are places in the world where they think America is God, right? This is the best country that could happen. And therefore, this is where people are very rational. People think through everything. They are not sentimental. They will get the best person in. But if you live in America, you know that is not always true in America. And that part came through in the movie, that it could be a parody of what has happened. So the movie shows the irrationality of the democratic processes that relies on choices made by the masses. And so the movie is asking us to question. I mean, this is your class, or you are studying democracy, you are studying politics history. But if you study the history of Western democracy, like the early philosophers from Plato, Aristotle, they never believed in democracy. There's even a book by Jack Garcia called The Hatred of Democracy. They never believed in democracy. This issue of Greek democracy that we celebrate was there, but these philosophers felt it would bring up all sorts of people. So Aristotle believed in aristocracy. Plato in the Republic was looking for the philosopher king, never the masses, right? Because they felt the masses could not make the right decision, right? So if you look at some of these early thinkers, philosophers, they are not really believers in the philosophy of demos, because the word democracy means the masses, the rule of the masses. They rather prefer aristocratic values or other things, but not necessarily democracy. So it raises the question that Ajadi, a man that we know what he was talking about, politics, was not serious, couldn't answer any question, but the masses chose him, right? So it goes to the heart of the debate that has been going on for over 2,000 years from the ancient Greek. Is democracy is the best place? Can we choose the best person? And even in America, early economists came up with a model that democracy is only going to choose things that are contradictory and not necessarily good. So if you do political science, you would have seen this choice by the masses do not always produce. And in the movie, the man that won doesn't seem to be the most intelligent person. He doesn't seem to know what he's talking about, but he won. So and so you can also say that is a Nigerian thing. You can also say that's an American thing. You can say that is a core issue of democracy that they're trying to address. Now, the third issue is the social media. So, yeah, the social media appears to be upturning reality. But it also shows that the selection processes of elites and leaders seems baseless. I mean, so when we're in the class of political science and history and looking at election process, what it does tell us is that the people who are portrayed as leaders in the different fields, there's really nothing behind them. See, yes, social media is used in politics, but if you think deeper about it, what does it say about the selection process or the emergence of leaders or elites in any society, right? So we now, a society is portrayed as a mirror of mirrors, projections and simulacra, like that's what is going on, right? No substance. And one of the major influencers that everybody thinks she's rich or she's knowledgeable. She lives in a very poor neighborhood in one room, and she buys secondhand clothes. But goes off, shows herself to be that important, and so you see that. You say, well, the images I see on television doesn't translate, or social media doesn't translate to the real. So the movie portrays the emptiness, the fakeness, and the elevation of mediocrity to be the epitome of excellence. Now, people who are mediocre will just say something, and all of a sudden they are trending. Right? They'll do all sorts of things, like the musicians and his wife that was trending, or so. And Ajadi said something that doesn't make sense. He dances, so all of a sudden he has most followers or stuff, right? So what does that tell us? So excellence is portrayed as excellence without virtue. The word, if you look at the word excellence from the Greek, it means arete, which also means translated excellence. What does it mean? So you see, vanity, all is vanity, right? But the movie showed something that is important in social theory, critical social theory, sociology, or even literature. It's about what they call human desires are mimetic. Means that human beings imitate one another, right? So desires are imitative. Are democratic choices, decisions, or agents in the electoral processes not mimetic? I wanted to think about that the theory of mimesis, right? Imitation, that we consume what we think others consume. We like what we think others like, right? It's a powerful theory in social sciences. And then in democracies, what we do? We vote where others are going. We think our neighbors, our church members or so. So and this movie brings out how imitative our choices are. The place of the social media in the movie is not just to portray social media as an important player in modern politics, although it does that, but also lift mimetic desire to attention as that which drives modern culture, societies, and human choices. So I'm not just looking at the social media, I'm saying in terms of the desires that it generates and how people follow other desires, right? We buy the things other people buy. We sing the song other people buy. And that is how society moves. And social media, it just gives us a lens. The place of social media in the movie gives us a lens to see it. Then like I said, 5 areas. The fourth area is the character of ideology in Nigeria and United States. Now, if you are familiar with the theories of ideology from Karl Marx or so, ideology always appears like, oh, this is what the ruling class wants you to believe, and therefore your belief is false. That you believe something false, and therefore the ruling class, the hegemonic class, now rules over you. But from the movie and from my studies, I've shown that ideology operates in a different way in Nigeria, and that movie consciously or unconsciously captures that. And I say the movie is a good portrayal of how ideology operates in Nigeria. In the past, most scholars thought that ideology is an illusion, or the acceptance of hegemonic ideology was portrayed as a matter of false knowledge. In this movie, we see ideology as rooted in the fantasies and the dreams Nigeria constructed for themselves, and then try to live into them. Nigerians are complicit in the construction of the post-colonial reality or the ideological fantasy that sustains it. The movie conveys Nigerians, especially the elites, the political leaders, as contributing to the frustratingly inescapable fantasy that interpellates them. Ideology is more motivated in each person from within their desires that are complicit in the post-colonial status quo. Now, what is the post-colonial status quo? It's a place of corruption. It's a place where people want to get rich quickly. And you could see in the movie, everybody says, I want to be like Ajadi. Maybe I could also be rich. So they all construct their fantasies about how their life should be. And that's what drives them, instead of somebody consciously deceiving them or false. The man never deceived them, but each of them constructed their fantasies of how their lives could be. They may live with him, they may live there carefully, they may marry 2 wives or they may have these resources to live. So is that kind of desires, want to be like him or want to be like, that drives the masses towards him. And finally, is this movie a political movie or a religious movie? Right? So finally, the movie is a search for the fundamental but elusive humanity that lies behind our deeds and identities. The elusive real shines through in the moment of utter dejection of the presidential candidate, Jadi, and his wife. In what seems to be a chaotic moment of breakthrough, the real of their humanity flashed through and connected them to the Nigerian masses. We get the sense that Nigerians are seeking for that elusive real in their political leaders, right? You can see everything has failed. The moment when they're on that dining table, right, they don't know what to do, and the man was just talking. That very moment is like he became himself. He became like something broke through. He just said, I just want to give them electricity. I just want to have good roads for them. I just want to do something. It's not do or die matter. It's not you see, the authenticity came in. It was not more just giving sound bites or so. He was really talking from his heart. At that point, he connected to Nigerians because they understood that he meant providing something for them. And he said, if only we can do that, even Trump will visit us. Now, it's not a question of Trump. He's saying, at least Trump will represent the white guy, the developed world. That's what Trump in that place means. Will respect us because finally we've gotten our act together. Right? So that was the moment of a breakthrough of his humanity, not all this ambition or something, doesn't know what he's doing. The reality set in, and that moment, that is when it finally connected. So that scene at the dining table, when it looks as as if all is lost and over, the eternal flashes through, the sacred as a set of infinite possibilities bursts on the scene, as if God just opened a way, the miraculous. As if God just opened a way for him to connect. And it's also in a Christian way, what his enemies meant for evil, God turned it for good, right? We have seen Ajadi as nothing, his hopes as nothing, his ambition had come to nothing. But it was precisely as such a moment of nothing or nothingness that something less than nothing bubbles up as in quantum energy. In quantum mechanics, it says, whenever you feel that you've vacuumed a place, right, you come back, there's still some remnants of energy that is less than nothing. So Ajadi's basic humanity and his abiding hope for change and basic dignity for Nigerians burst forth like water from a rock and connected into his fellow Nigerians. In life, there is always something less than nothing. Nigerians always believe in that in the miraculous. And is this a religious hope of Nigerians? And this is religious hope of Nigerians and makes the movie a religious one. It appears that was a religious, all of a sudden, as Pentecostal would say, God showed up in an unexplainable way. And that's why I use the word chaotic moment. In theology, chaotic moment is the breakthrough of the divine in an unexpected moment. They were just talking. And whatever he said, all of a sudden became more important. It was being played around, and everybody said, yeah, he's a good guy. So that is religious hope of Nigeria. So the movie, in a sense, is a religious one. As an American philosopher once said, he said, a religion is the substance of culture, and culture is the form of religion. That you can look at the people's culture, and it gives you an indication of the substance, that religion is the basis of that culture. So if you look at the film, it's a cultural production. But in this substance, it's actually a religious message. At least it's susceptible to that kind of interpretation, right? So there's something religious because you could see the breakthrough almost of the divine in the movie, even though they've used a lot of religious movement, but that inexplicable moment seems to be a moment of chaotic breakthrough by God, and therefore opens up the whole. Suddenly, it's what that he could not even believe that they won. God moves in a mysterious way, and that moment was a filmmaker's way of saying, well, the divine broke through for him, just like as in Trump, he couldn't even believe that he would win the election. So, and American evangelical defined that moment as God breaking through, so no one can take the glory. And I think in that sense, we can interpret this movie as a religious one. Thank you, and I will stop there.
Thank you so much for your talk, and thank you so much for sharing all the wonderful points that you brought up. I would love to share some of your notes with our students even after, if you're willing to do so, to keep it. I want to open up to Q&A, but before we do,
I'm trying to stop the sharing, sorry.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Before we go into Q&A, I actually want to do, just as the moderator, just ask a couple follow-up questions, and hopefully that would kick off and stir other students to share their questions as well. But I have a couple of questions. Number one, in the film, you see the export of American social media networks, specifically Instagram. And this is, I'm kind of echoing some of the questions that I saw from the students' contributions, and also a roundtable discussion we had on this last week. But do Nigerians, is this an accurate portrayal of Nigerians? Do they extensively use American sort of social media platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, X, or YouTube? Or is there Nigerian social networks that they use? And then one second question that I found our students to be scratching their heads on was in the film, the chief Adaji was praised for, if he can manage two wives, then he can manage a country, because and that reference to polygamy. And our question was, how does polygamy affect, I guess, Nigerian politics for political elites or the culture in terms of religion? It being, both a sort of Christian and Muslim, between the Christian and Muslim dynamics as well. So yeah, any comments on that would be great.
Yeah, so social media is very big in Nigeria. Probably Nigeria is about the biggest social media market in Africa, because for the share population, Nigeria is over 200 million. And so you might say social media is also very big in Nigeria if you're Black. It doesn't matter where you come from, because Nigeria is about 1/5 of all Black population in the world, right? So Black population is about 1 billion plus, and Nigeria is 200 billion. So it covers everybody. So there are more Nigerians than any other group. So when they use social media, even if you get 20% of the population to use social media, that's about 40, 50 million, right? And you have more. So social media is very big. Most people have Facebook account, multiple Facebook account. They have Instagram or so. So they use it for their business. It's so powerful that it's also a voice of criticism that the government tried to ban or the use of those media years ago, and there was a big fight that or put some kind of penalty for criticism. So there are laws like that, and they are always fighting, because the youth or the younger ones use social media to mock the politician, to influence teens or so, or even religious leaders, right? When they go wrong, everybody. So social media is very influential in Nigeria. But does it influence outcome of politics in terms of who wins? That is very little. Not because it couldn't have, because elections are always massively rigged. So that is something about the part of the movie that is not realistic. The movie shows as if people just voted and won. In Nigeria, elections are rigged or predetermined or so. So you can have all the social media following, it might not affect the election result, because they're all cooked up. There's rigged in a way that, so the social media, they will attend to it during the campaign, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really translate into votes. Not that it couldn't, but because sometimes, often, the results are predetermined. So, but it shows in the movie as if purely people just vote and the guy just won. Now, in the typical Nigerian situation, probably it's not even from the ruling party. He wouldn't have won, because there was no show of, like, even the electoral agencies are not independent. Instead of in this country, you have electoral agency or commission for every state. You have only one for the whole country. And so if one party, and the party appoints their own people to lead, to dominate that electoral process, so they will declare or make things difficult. So that is part of the movie that is not realistic in terms of, as if there's a free, fair election, people just win. So social media is influential, but it's yet to influence seriously electoral outcome. Then polygamy in the country. So about half of the country, mainly in the north, are Muslims, and part of the southwest are Muslim. So in Islam, they allow 4 wives. So people take it as a religious duty. In the more southern Christian part, Christianity doesn't allow multiple wives, one wife. In the traditional African religion, also allows multiple wives, right? So, but some Christians once in a while ignore that. So Ajadi in the movie, the president is portrayed as a Christian, but yet he has 2 wives, because he said he's trying to divorce one or so. So a lot of the presidents have multiple wives. The present president is a Muslim, but he has 1 wife. The one before him, president, only had 1 wife. The one before that was Goodluck Jonathan, was a Christian. He had 1 wife, right? So yeah, in the past we have people who had multiple wives, but yeah, people do allow. It's not illegal in Nigeria to have two wives, because traditional African society allowed multiple wives. Islam allows multiple wives. If you outlaw it, then you are going to criminalize you're going to criminalize a good percentage of your population for something they've been doing, and that has not come up in election. The last presidential election, one of the candidates for the major parties had at least 4 wives or so. But he didn't win, but it was not because he had multiple wives.
Thank you so much for that answer. I want to open it up to our students now. And if you have a question you would like to ask, I see Asher's hand up, the emoji, but let me know in the chat box and I'll try to get to it in the order. Let me know in the chat box if you have a question to ask. Just say, I have a question, and then I can call on you. So I want to group it in maybe students in 3 questions so that Dr. Wariboko can kind of answer, up to 3 questions at a time, if that's okay with you. It doesn't have to be full-on answers, but even just commenting, just a little bit is fine as well. But I would like to ask Asher to ask this question first, and then Maddie has a question, and then DJ has a question.
Yeah, so my question really starts from kind of Donald Trump and his perception in Nigeria. You kind of mentioned how it was very much the sentiment of well, if he can be president, then anyone can be president. And I was just curious what the whole Nigerian attitude towards Donald Trump was, because in the film it seemed pretty positive, but you kind of seemed like it wasn't super positive when you were talking about it. So I was just curious kind of what that sentiment was towards Donald Trump as president.
Okay.
Maddie?
Thank you again for taking the time to speak with our class. Your discussion about social media being responsible for imitative tendencies kind of resonated with me. So I was wondering if you think that social media platforms should be held liable or accountable for things that get out of hand, and how you think we should go about holding them accountable.
And then DJ?
So obviously you lived in Nigeria, so I was wondering how important religion is in being president in Nigeria compared to the United States.
Okay, so those are the 3 questions. Well, Donald Trump, to start with, had a very positive image in Nigeria. He still has a good image in Nigeria. That's it. Because they see him, especially, okay, when I say Nigeria, well, the North is Muslim. They might not see him because of his Muslim ban. But the South is Christian and heavily Pentecostalized. They see him as some kind of divine figure, just like the way the religious, the evangelicals see him in this country. That his emergence was seen as miraculous, and therefore they feel God is behind him. So they like. The last election in 2020, there were actually street demonstration in many places in Nigeria, Christian group carrying placard and campaigning openly on the street for Trump as if Nigerians would vote. That's how popular he was. There was a movement like that. People were having prayer night. And remember, it is so important that in the night of the election, when Kala White or so was praying, why did she ask the angels from Africa and Nigeria to come and help him win? Because the evangelical right believe that because Africans are very prayerful and their Pentecostalism might be stronger, or if not in fact stronger, that the angels there will come. So in that night, she was the religious advisor or confidant to Donald Trump, Paula White, and she was praying that God sent angels from Africa. Because Trump campaign and them were aware that a lot of Pentecostals and Christians were seriously praying for him, and he was popular. So they openly make that video available in the night of election, that let God send his angels to make sure that in the counting, Trump will come across. You can do a Google search for Paula White, and you see that. That shows how even the Trump campaign took them very seriously. Then the other question is social media, should they be held responsible? That's a debate that is going on. I wouldn't say they should be held responsible, because that's a part of a freedom of speech, democratic expression, right? Do you hold people for their speech, or do you hold them because somebody's imitating them? But at the point where even like newspapers or so, if people go outside the law to incite violence or so, then they should be held responsible, just like any other form of publications or announcement. But the mere fact of, because if a politician sees them as a nuisance, because they're prying or criticizing, is not enough. But if somebody uses social media to incite violence, I think in most countries they will hold that person responsible, but just the fact that people criticize or show fake lifestyle on social media wouldn't be enough to bring the law against them. Is religion, the role of religion in Nigeria? There's something about religion in Nigeria. Yes, it's important, but it's not as important as people think it is. And that is surprising. So if you look at the movie, you think that religion is very important. Because, yeah, religion is important. People will say whether you are Muslim or Christian, right? But at the end of the day, ethnicity trumps religion in Nigeria. People will vote for you more because you are from the same ethnic group before they would vote for you because you are stuff. So that is the dynamics, right? That so in this last election, the president has the two candidates are all Muslims, and they won. Of course, people will say, "Oh, you don't really know they won because elections could be rigged or were rigged." But oftentimes, you see that if even a Muslim is from the same ethnic group in Nigeria, he trusts that person from the same ethnic group more than he would trust a fellow Christian or a fellow Muslim. So it's not always clear the role of religion. Of course, both religion and ethnicity in Nigeria are mobilized by factions of the elite for power. So sometimes religious rancor in politics or ethnic rancor in politics is elevated beyond its what or what it actually does. Because when there's an intra-class competition, when the ruling class or the parties are competing for vote to win, they will raise these issues of religion and ethnicity to generate vote. But the ruling class at that level, they are friends, whether they are Muslims or they're Christians or they're from one ethnic group, Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, Ijaw. They all miss, their children miss together. They enjoy the stolen wealth of Nigeria together. It doesn't really affect them. But anytime there's election, they will use all sorts of tactics to raise tension just to win, right? To raise tension or when they're fighting for political offices, how to divide the spoils. They will say, okay, give it to me because my ethnic group have not gotten something. Give it to me because you are not fair to the Muslims. You're not fair to the Christians. So we must distinguish how religion and ethnicity is mobilized to generate vote or for the sharing of public resources versus their actual performance or so, right? So ethnicity and religion are always playing, but oftentimes they're used by the ruling class. Just like in this country, people will use race or other things or sexual orientation or whatever to generate vote, but actually when they get to office, do they really implement all that? But after 4 years, they will come back again and say the same thing. So that complicates matter. But religion is very important in the life of Nigerians. According to some Pew surveys, they pray more. They tend to, worldwide, they tend to pray more. They tend to say that religion or scripture, whether it's Quran or Bible, affects their life. So they take religion very, very seriously. But when they come to important political posts, sometimes if a person from your ethnic group appeals to you, you are more likely to trust that person to protect your interests than a fellow Christian from a different ethnic group.
Thank you so much for that answer. I mean, I'm hearing that ethnicity is, prioritized when it comes to voting. I know that there's 36 Nigerian states, and I'm wondering, how many ethnic groups are there? Groups are there in Nigeria? But that's just one follow-up question I have. But I'll also like to give the opportunity for 3 more students to ask their questions, to bundle it together. So first, Peyton, Zach, and Zoe.
Hi, thank you so much again for your time. It was wonderful to hear from you. I was wondering if there's one thing that you could share with us that you've taken away from your career and all of your studies, one thing that's just stuck out to you, or maybe something that's been on your heart a lot. So yeah, anything you can share.
Next, Zach.
Hi, thank you again for being here. It was really great hearing from you. My question is there like a strong sense of like religious nationalism in either the Christian or Muslim circles in Nigeria?
Zoe.
Yeah, thank you so much again. And my question is more towards the movie and the film. When they went to the church, there was a lot of people with their phones out and recording. And of course, that might have been when like the president-elect was there. But I was wondering if that's like a social norm for people during church to have their phones out and start filming the worship and sermon too. I know for me, like we can't do that. We can't have our phones out. But yeah.
Okay, so let me start from the back. Do they film? Well, if a politician come into this church, it had changed the nature of the church, right? People want to say I was there with him. So they film at that point. The pastor wasn't really controlling anything. But while there's service, yeah, in some churches, yeah, you can film because the churches also want people to have snippets of their service being broadcast through different social media to attract people. And sometimes that's how they get into trouble. So any bad thing that happen, people do. So people do that. But it could see the churches were already influenced by the church. They were singing a Christian song. And the president candidate picked up the phone and he said, we're going to change it to his political song. And the church and the pastor acquiesced because he has first told them, we are going to give. And if you see the pastor being hungry for that money, and we are here to give, so that's a promise of good money, and they change their song. So that often happen in political setting when you bring politicians to your church. They take over this, and these pastors know what they're doing because they're also building access to that to those politicians. When they get to power, then the pastors could have access, and you could see that pastor wanting to get access to the president-elect. But he also realized that the whole pastor prophecy was all fake. Forget the fact that he said the man was going to win and he won. The whole thing is one orchestrated lie. Why? If you remember at the beginning of the film, they said, let's get Ajadi in to use his money to finance. They were not supposed to give him the power, just to use him. And they set up this pastor to meet him in that joint where he goes to drink beer and eat chicken with his friend, to suddenly appear from nowhere to tell him, God said you win. It was all a setup. So, but it was to make him believe. Then the next day, they will go to him and that will convince him to take it. So it was always a scam. And the scam blew up in their face, right? So the pastors went in, and the next day, he didn't want to listen to the pastor because if he thinks they're fake, he walked out of that roadside store where they were drinking beer and so on. Then all of a sudden, the people came to him. He looks like, oh, that pastor was right. And he kept playing this game. And all of a sudden, the guy won. And that pastor felt, oh, I must have something in me. But if you look at the game, it was all part of to deceiving that guy. Remember, even towards the end of this stuff, they were still looking for a way to take the ticket from him. That's why they made him fall down, bring everything that they make him fall down. The women were giving him drinks, and it would be, all sorts of things they did to derail him because it was not their intention. They wanted this other guy to take over. And at the last minute, they were talking about this, and his friend had it standing behind the pillar and said, oh, this is. So you can see that all those things kind of. So the old church scene or the show of Christianity looks like it was all made up of fake just to promote a candidate, right? And that in itself is what sometimes takes place in Nigeria. That politicians deceive one another to use one person's money to finance another person, and they will set up all sorts of obstacles to win after they take your money to get you out and put the right person. It's just that in this case, it did not work. And so the second question about what have I learned so much in my study here. One thing that I've taken away is this idea that this country has its fault, but at least it's striving towards respect for human dignity. People just respect one another because you are a human being. And so even programs of government and so are created to say, how do we support people to maintain certain level of human dignity or respect, irrespective of their level of poverty, or so. And that is what democracy is supposed to do, to drive towards respect and human flourishing. At least there is a striving for that. Sometimes when I go to Nigeria, and I wrote an article in the newspaper in 2006 or 7, in 2007, I was surprised that the way the rich treat the poor, as if they've lost their dignity. If you're poor, a rich person can talk to you anyhow. And I felt I wrote a newspaper article about it, that there was not enough basic respect. You see president even talking on TV to their cabinet ministers or secretaries, and you don't see that respect. If you go to sometimes offices, bosses talk to their subordinates in a way that, wow, they don't fully respect you because you're not at the same level. I'm not saying every Nigerian does that, but it's widespread enough for you to notice that if you don't have money and if you don't have certain education, if you don't have certain wealth, you are not really taken seriously. So that's what has struck me in my studies of the two cultures. Finally, is there a religious nationalism? No, it's not in the sense of what they call religious nationalism in the US, because the country itself is divided mainly between Muslim and Christians, and both are of sizable size, almost like they're in their 40% of the population, over 40% of the population are Christians, over another 40% are Muslim. Then you have a little fraction that goes to the traditional religion. So on what basis are you going to have a religious nationalism or so? But there is something about Pentecostalism that is not religious nationalism, but a certain view of Nigeria as a country specially created and located by God for God's purpose. And now, what did they think? Because maybe it's just because of their size. The British colonial process purposely created Nigeria. They said they wanted to create the biggest African country in terms of population. So the British were, in 1914, were serious about it in terms of creating a sensible black country. So it was deliberately created by bringing people together. And Nigeria is in terms of population, the biggest black population in any one place, right? Now, so Nigerians have come to see that because they're the biggest black population, they feel they have a divine mandate to lead. So Nigerians feel the indignity of black people all over the world. They are very conscious of how black people are today, but they feel that there's also something about them, that they're very smart, intelligent, they can do anything. And therefore, they feel that the respect and the dignity, the scientific breakthrough, technological breakthrough, economic power is eventually going to come through Nigerians. And therefore, if Jesus Christ tarries, that they will be the arrowhead for the emergence of Nigeria or blacks and for black population to dominate the world in every field. So Nigerians seriously believe that they have a divine mandate, and that God is also going to use them to evangelize the whole world before Christ comes. And that's why you see Nigerian missionaries all over the world. So Pentecostalism has caught that message that everywhere you go, there are Nigerian missionaries, they spread because they feel that God has given them that purpose. And so they also look at the location of Nigeria. If you notice, Nigeria is located about midway in the world, anywhere you go. Between Ghana and Nigeria, if you travel on that space to the US, it's about equal distance going to China. So there's no other country that is smack at the middle of the world in terms of longitude and latitude, very close, Ghana and Nigeria. That part of Africa. So in terms of manufacturing, distribution, or transportation, if you have a global operation there, you cut your costs because you can ship to Asia on the east side, and you can ship to America by cost. But if you're going from China to America, the cost is increasing. But so they feel that there's a purpose God put in there. When their industrialization take off, they have that transportation advantage, right? And also, they feel like if you look at the map of Africa, turn it up horizontally, it's like a gun. Imagine it, just take the map of Africa, you can hold it as a gun, right? Where you have South Africa, it's like the nozzles of the gun. Look at the map of Africa. Where you have Algeria also is the head of the gun. But the trigger point is exactly where Nigeria is. And geographically, they have this symbolic geography that there will be the trigger point for God to shoot Africa into his prominence. So there's that divine consciousness of their purpose, that God has put that nation together for a divine purpose. And they said they are also the only nation in the world. I'm trying to think of how they come about this divine purpose, right? They're also the nation in the world where two rivers run across and make a cross. If you look at Nigerian map, you have a river that runs across and make like a cross, the Christian cross. So they felt from the one, they are marked by Christian cross. However, the country came together, you have two rivers running this way, and they make a cross. And they felt that is not for nothing. Of course, these are religious people, these are Pentecostal, right? They look for all this symbolism. I'm not saying every Nigerian believe that, but I'm just trying to give you reason to say, well, they may not have religious nationalism as in the US or other place, but they have some kind of a sense of divine mandate for their country. And then finally, he said, how many ethnic groups in Nigeria? There are about over 250. So Nigerians speak over 250 languages. Then you add English to it, right? So the average Nigerian will speak 3 languages or so. You speak English, you speak Pidgin English, which is like runs across West Africa, the Anglophone West Africa, and then they will speak their mother's tongue. So they're very conversant with, they're open to language, because you just pick up those 3 languages while growing up. So English, the Pidgin English, which is like Swahili in Eastern Africa that runs across, and then you have the native, their mother's tongue. And English is a combination of many African languages, English, German, Spanish, bits of that Portuguese all came together to create that language. Why? Because when the Portuguese landed on the west coast of Africa in 1472, that region of Nigeria and Ghana, they didn't speak African language, and Africans didn't speak their language. So both sides were trying to communicate, and then in the process, there's a mixture of the words that came out. And then what happened? So Pidgin English sounds like English, but the syntax, the words may sound English, but the syntax takes the syntax of African traditional language rather than any European. You could see, like he said, Sabi, right? Sabi is Portuguese for, or something, what do you know? It's also in Pidgin English, it means what do you know? So once you begin to hear, if you speak English, you can easily pick up over time, you pick up, because that is how the language evolved as a mixture of predominant African languages and European languages. Until today, it still mimics English in terms of words or so. So as a matter of fact, if you go to Nigeria, especially southern Nigeria, you could get by with English and with Pidgin English. If you go to the north, it's Hausa that is spoken in northern Nigeria and across the bulk of north of West Africa, right? Hausa is the lingua franca, but in the south, you have English and Pidgin English more. English also spoken in north, because we're all British, former British colony, just like English is spoken. So you have that. But in the southeast, you have Igbo being spoken, one of the three major languages. Then the southwest, you have the Yoruba being spoken. But a good number of people, especially who are educated, understand English, and then also Pidgin English. BBC, knowing the importance of Pidgin English in Nigeria and Ghana and across the West Coast, now broadcast. They have a full Pidgin English broadcast service. Everything is done in Pidgin English. So that is one language.
That is so fascinating to hear, just the evolution of language spoken in Africa. I'm looking at the time. Our class will end at 1:20, so I do want to end on 1:20 so that we can formally say goodbye and we don't, have people trickling out and have like a lackluster ending. But I want to give still our last three students the opportunity to ask their question, and I'm going to hope that we can have like a rapid fire sort of answer session. So the first question, the last three will come from Trinity, Alex, and Riley.
Okay, so in your presentation, you had a section about ideologies being rooted in fantasies. I just wanted to know if that generally is looked at in a positive way, where it like motivates politicians, or if it's more seen in a negative way to where it like becomes unrealistic.
Alex? Alex, are you still searching for your...
Yeah, I keep hitting the wrong button. I was gonna ask, despite this not particularly being about the movie, I was gonna ask more about your personal career. How is the educational system different from each country that you've studied in?
Last but not least, Riley.
Hi, mine's also kind of about a little piece of your lecture. You mentioned how the film has like themes of American culture negatively influencing other cultures, and is this a common theme in Nigerian media?
Okay, good. So in Nigerian media, there's always a debate. American culture will influence negatively and positively. So there's no one answer, depending on the issue. But there's no doubt American culture or media has a lot of influence. Whether that influence is positive or negative, it depends on the issue. But America is very much present there, and they know a lot about American society, more than even some Americans know about their country. In terms of education, yes, educational system are different. In the past, Nigerian educational system was very good, even though it was modeled after the British, but later generation of university modeled after the American system, right? So the school my first degree was modeled after an American form of education, right? But now the issue is because the government is not funding the universities very well, the educational system has gone down. But in the past, if you are trained in Nigeria, you could go to America or United Kingdom to do your PhD or master's, and you don't have any problems. It was of that standard. But in the last 20, 25 years, the standard have slipped or so. And then finally, fantasy about ideology. Yes, the politicians know that people desire to be like them, and they could promise all these things, give you the fantasy, and then people buy into it. Now, the point I'm saying that people buy into it, not because the politicians are deceiving them, because people have created their own desires and fantasy, and therefore it's easy for them to buy into it. So they are not being consciously deceived. They buy into the fantasy that the politicians create, when even they know those fantasies are just mere fantasies. They're not going to be translated into reality.
All right.
That is all the three questions here.
Yes. And I see a question, Trinity. How do we successfully connect with him on LinkedIn? So I just sent a LinkedIn to his page if you have any follow-up questions. And I just want to thank Dr. Wariboko again for your time. Are there any last words that you'd like to kind of send us off with? Any last thoughts?
No, it's been a great conversation, very interesting. All the questions that we are asked kind of open up the theme to me, even from different dimensions. And they're all valid interpretations of the theme, all the questions you asked. I just offered my own slice of it.
Yeah, thank you so much again for your time today. This has been just so enlightening. I gained so much out of it personally. And I want to thank everyone for being here. Everyone can, take off, but I'm going to, Dr. Wariboko, if you can stick around for a few minutes. And if actually any students want to stick around for just a few minutes, you can do so as well. But thank you so much.